The stars shimmered like rivers of silver. A creature drifted through them, alone but not afraid. His name was not known, for his kind did not speak names the way we do. His ship, sleek and humming softly, glided through the darkness of space. With quiet purpose. He had no mission, just curiosity. He was far from his home world, a world of crystalline towers and glowing skies, seeking something beyond maps and coordinates, exploration, adventure. But something went wrong. A sudden jolt, a burst of sparks, a deep hum turning into a violent shudder. Alarms echoed through the ship's chambers. Lights flickered blue, then red. Stabilizer failure, he muttered to himself. Before he could reroute the systems, the pull of gravity began to take over. Not from a moon or a planet he recognized, but from a small, ice-covered sphere. Earth. The descent was fast, chaotic. Flames curled around the outer hull. The ship groaned under pressure. And then silence, a blinding flash of white, and then only snow, the land of ice. When he opened his eyes, everything was still. His ship lay torn and half buried in a wasteland of white. Mountains of ice surrounded him. The sky above was pale and endless. He stepped out into the cold and felt nothing. No birds, no animals, no sound, just wind and snow. He wrapped his arms around himself and began the long walk toward nowhere. He needed materials, heat, energy, but there was nothing here. No sun strong, enough to charge his cells. No minerals, no shelter. He built a small cave of ice, shaped it with his hands using scraps from his wrecked ship. Every movement was heavy, every breath slow. Days passed. Nights, even colder, came and went. The stars were familiar, but the world was not. He thought of his planet, of the glowing cities, of the people who might still be listening, but there was no way to reach them, not yet. On the 13th day, he saw them, small figures, moving across the snow. Machines rolled behind them, lights blinked on their shoulders. Humans. He stepped back, hiding behind the jagged ice. He watched, listened. Their voices were sharp, fast, loud. Did the signal come from here? Look at that. That's not human. Is it alive? He stepped forward, not to attack, just to be seen. The moment their eyes met, everything stopped. One of them shouted. Another raised a device. "It's coming closer!" He tried to speak in his own language, slow and peaceful. But they didn't understand. They pointed weapons. He raised a hand, palm open, but in their fear, they fired. Bright darts of energy hit his chest. He staggered. Another shot, then another. The snow turned red beneath him. He fell to one knee, his voice still trying to form sounds they could know. But it was too late. They surrounded him, caged him in heavy machines, injected him with sleep, and then the darkness, then light, then darkness again. He didn't know how long he had been asleep, but it felt like the world had stopped. When he finally opened his eyes, he wasn't outside in the snow anymore. He was inside something, a dome, clear, like glass, strong like steel. He tried to move, but his limbs were heavy, not from weakness, but from the weight of time. All around him was silence. The humans were gone. The snow was still there, but now, outside the dome, inside, he was a relic, a prisoner, a display. He touched the glass, cold and smooth. He could feel the hum of energy, a low vibration beneath the surface. They had made sure he could not escape, and so he waited. Time passed. Years turned to decades, decades into centuries. He didn't age, not in the human way, but he remembered everything. The day they attacked him, the way they looked at him, not with wonder, but with fear. They never tried to speak again, never tried to understand. Instead, they wrote books, created stories, painted him as a monster. The Antarctic horror, the creature that never dies. The ice demon, each one more dramatic than the last. Children grew up with tales of the Sleeping alien beneath the ice. Some believed he was evil, others thought he was long dead, but none of them knew the truth. He was alive, and he was listening. Present day, a new generation had come. Far above, research stations now hummed with power. Satellites blinked overhead, and inside those stations, humans still studied the mystery of the creature. Among them was someone different. Dr. Ilara Miles had always been a seeker. While her peers were satisfied with data reports and laboratory safety, she wanted stories buried under the ice. She wanted mystery. She'd heard the rumors all her life of the alien entombed in Antarctica. Most dismissed them as myths, whispers of lost expeditions. But Ilara believed. The wind shrieked around her tent. Her gloved hands gripped her journal as she scribbled thoughts. If even part of the legend is true, then that creature isn't just a myth. He's a key, a witness to history we never understood. On her 29th birthday, she filed for an independent expedition. Months of negotiation followed. She used her savings. She bargained, pleaded. Eventually, she won a spot on a climate research team stationed near the legendary dome. One stormy morning, against her team's warnings, she put on her gear and walked through the blizzard toward the forgotten dome. Snow whipped across Ilara's visor as she trudged through the endless white. Her boots sank deep into the ice with every step. The cold bit through her jacket like it had a mind of its own, but she didn't stop. She had to see it him, not the legend. Not the monster in the textbooks. She wanted to see the truth. After hours of walking through the storm, the shape began to appear, buried beneath layers of snow and silence. A dome, smooth, still, half covered by time. She stood in front of it, heart pounding. For a long moment she just stared, and then she whispered to herself, "This is it." A presence within the dome was silent, no movement, no sound, just her reflection in the glass. She stepped closer, brushing snow from the surface with her gloves, and that's when she saw it. Eyes behind the glass, closed, still, the creature. His skin was pale and strange, like metal and stone at once. His body was huge, curled into itself like he had been sleeping for centuries. His hands rested gently in his lap. Ilara's breath caught. Is he dead? She placed her hand softly on the dome's surface, and then, suddenly, a faint glow spread from where her fingers touched. She gasped, stumbled. Back, the glow faded, and she felt that someone is looking. Two large, quiet, golden eyes that looked directly at her. She ran with fear that day. Next morning she went again. Ilara stood frozen. The creature slowly lifted his hand and pressed it against the glass. Not a threat, not anger, a question. Hesitantly, Ilara raised her own hand and laid it over his. The moment her skin touched the glass, a golden flash burst across the dome. Warmth for just a second. Then it faded, and they both pulled away. Her heart was racing, her breath came fast. She turned and ran through the snow, back to the station. She didn't look back. The night of doubt, that night, Ilara sat alone in her camp while all were sleeping. The storm had passed, but her mind was still spinning. She spread her old research papers across the floor. Books, myths, reports. Some said the creature killed a team of explorers. Others said it cursed the land with silence. Some even claimed the reason Antarctica had no native human history was because of him. But that's not what I saw, she whispered. He hadn't attacked her. He didn't look like a monster. His eyes, they looked lonely. The next morning, the sky over Antarctica was a pale sheet of gray. Inside the research base, heat buzzed quietly through metal walls. Scientists moved between equipment, their faces tired and focused, unaware that one of them was carrying a secret too big to hold. Ilara hadn't slept. Her thoughts were stuck on those eyes, that hand on the glass. That golden light. She had seen something no one else had, and now it was burning inside her, like a question she couldn't stop asking. Who is he really? And why was he waiting? She couldn't take it anymore. At lunch, she pulled aside her closest colleague, the only one she half trusted. His name was Dr. Rowan Vex, older than her, stern, always skeptical. But he listened. In a quiet corner of the base, over the hum of generators, she whispered everything. You touched the dome. You triggered something. You communicated? I think so. I felt him. I think he... You went there alone? Ilara, do you know what you've done? He cried before the completion of her statement. He's not dead, Rowan. He's alive. I saw his eyes. He touched the glass, and I think he understands us. For a moment, Rowan just stared. Then his face changed. Fear, then anger, then panic. She tried to calm him, but he stood up, loud, angry, scared. This is not a storybook. That thing is dangerous. Within the hour, everyone knew. Voices rose across the station. Papers flew. Tablets beeped. Security gear was pulled out of locked drawers. Ilara was surrounded by questions. Is it awake? Did it move? Did it speak? Did it attack? She didn't have answers they wanted, and worst of all, they didn't believe her. They believed the stories. So the next morning, under orders, a team of 6 was sent out, Ilara included, to inspect the dome. When they reached the site, even through the ice and glass, they could see it. The creature was sitting up. He was awake. Everyone stopped. Weapons were raised, breath caught in throats, but it didn't move, didn't roar, didn't charge. He just stared. And Ilara, she saw something in his expression no one else seemed to notice. Sadness. He wasn't angry. He looked tired. He looked like someone who had waited too long. The team went back. And that night, in her camp, Ilara sat alone again, but this time the silence was heavier. She replayed every detail in her mind. His stillness, his hand, his eyes. And one question kept coming back. Can he understand us? She remembered the way the dome had glowed under her touch. She remembered how calm he had seemed. The team leader warned everyone not to go there again. But Ilara walked anyway. Wrapped in heavy gear, her boots crushed through layers of snow. Her breath fogged the air in soft clouds. She didn't care about the storm or the cold or the rules. She needed to see him again, not because of science, not because of history, but because her heart whispered something she couldn't ignore. He's not just a story. The dome stood in silence, half buried in the storm. Snow blew hard across its surface. But Ilara wiped it clean and pressed her palm to the glass. The glow returned, soft and golden. Inside, the creature looked up. He placed his hand on the glass again, a slow, deliberate gesture, and then a voice. It didn't come through the air. It came into her mind, deep and strange, like echoes inside a cave. I knew you would. Oh, come. Ilara stepped back, heart racing. Did you just speak to me? The creature nodded slowly. I have waited a long time for someone to hear me. His voice was deep, slow, filled with weight. Each word seemed to carry centuries. How? She whispered. You understand me? When you placed your hand on the dome, I received your language. Ilara's mind spun. Who are you? I am Oren, and he lifted one hand and suddenly the dome changed. Its glass shimmered and turned into light. A moving image formed across its surface like a holographic film. Ilara gasped as she saw the story play before her eyes. A ship streaking through space, a malfunction, a crash, ice, fear, and then humans with weapons raised. It crouched, tried to communicate, but he couldn't speak their language. They shouted, fired. He fell and woke. Inside this prison, 200 years ago, the burden of silence Ilara wiped tears from her eyes. You should have told them you weren't a threat. He looked at her. Fear imprisoned me. I never meant to stay. I only needed time to fix my ship. Ilara looked at him through the glass, and in that moment, she believed him. Not because of science, not because of data, but because she saw the truth in his eyes. How can I help? Some pieces of my ship were taken by the scientists at that time. Others lie buried in the ice. If I will get free from this dome, now I have enough energy to send signals to my planet, a core relay, a signal amplifier and a memory crystal. If I had them, I could send a beacon home. Ilara stood close, voice quiet. Can you be free? Oren looked down at his large hands. The glass shimmered faintly beneath his fingers. The dome is sealed with alloys I cannot break. My strength is useless here. Ilara frowned. But you're so advanced. All this technology, and you couldn't escape. He let out a low, rumbling sound. It almost sounded like a chuckle. Apparently, your scientists were very paranoid. Ilara smiled a little. It was the first time either of them had smiled. First, we'll need a way to open this dome. Ilara pulled something from her jacket, a small steel blade just for emergencies. She held it up. Okay, let's test this paranoid dome of yours. Oren tilted his head, amused. You are very brave or very reckless. A little of both, she muttered. She struck the dome. Clink, nothing. Again. Clink. Then a faint crack appeared. Not deep, but real. Aha, she grinned. Science. More like stubbornness, Oren replied. They both laughed. The sound was strange, echoing around them in the snow. Ilara looked at him, tilting her head thoughtfully. You have a name. Oron, I like it. But I think you need a nickname, something friendly. Oron raised an eyebrow, or whatever part of his face worked like one. Friendly? Yes, like Ori. Oron blinked. That sounds like a fruit. Okay. What about Starface? Ilara. All right, we'll stick with Oron. For a moment, they both just stood there, smiling strangers from different worlds, but slowly becoming something else. They worked together in secret. Ilara returned each night. She mapped signals, used old equipment to trace the missing components. One by one, she retrieved them, a crystalline lens from a lab, a shard of memory core buried beneath a glacier. Each time, it grew stronger. When the final piece clicked into the communicator, Oren sent the signal. Thank you, Ilara of Earth. She turned, smiling softly. You're welcome, Oren of the Stars. Only hours after the signal launched, a strange shift occurred in the air above Antarctica, high above the clouds. A shimmer, like glass cracking in the sky. The stars looked wrong, too close, too alive, and then came the light, not falling, not flying, but arriving. Like something was folding space to step through. Ilara and the rest of the science team looked up, stunned. What is that? Someone whispered. No one answered. The sky was changing. That night, the science team interrogated Ilara. How did she find the creature? Why did she open the dome? Why did she send a signal? They called her reckless, foolish, dangerous. Ilara stood. Firm, he's not what you think. But fear grew fast, too fast. They locked Oren's dome with new magnetic fields. They surrounded the site with drones. And worse, they blamed Ilara. You've endangered the planet, said Dr. Marin, the team leader. You have no idea what you've invited. Ilara turned away, but she was shaken and hurt. Ilara returned. To Oron, eyes full of conflict. I trusted you. I believed in you when everyone was writing against Yor for 200 years. I never meant to bring war, Oron said. I sent for help, for rescue. Well, something's coming. And they don't look peaceful. She stared at him, her eyes no longer soft. Did you lie to me? Oren stepped back. No, but they may not listen to me either. Then what have we done? She whispered. What we had to, Oren replied. To survive. But Ilara said nothing more. She turned and walked away. Above the clouds, light gathered like a storm held back by time itself. And in the dome, Oron watched the sky. not with hope, but with worry. Because sometimes, even rescue can look like invasion. The sky above Antarctica was silent, until it wasn't. At exactly 03:17 a.m., a rupture tore through the clouds, not like a ship entering, but like space itself folding open. A brilliant crack of white-blue light sliced across the night. Then they came. Not with one ship, not 10, but an entire fleet gliding like sentinels. Towering crafts shaped like blades, hovering above the ice fields. They didn't roar, they hummed, a deep, ancient sound that made the ground tremble. The scientists looked up in horror. Ilara stood frozen outside her camp, breath fogging in the cold. Her heart sank. No, this wasn't the plan. All over the world, alerts were triggered. NORAD, NATO, Space Command. The Antarctic research base was immediately militarized. Stealth aircraft streaked over the snow. Troops were airlifted in. Drones circled overhead, locking onto the alien fleet. Global broadcast cut through the panic. This is a defensive response. Remain calm. Earth is under protection. But calm had already fled. Governments didn't wait for diplomacy. They prepared for extinction. Inside the dome, Oren was restrained again. Heavy steel clamps reinforced the perimeter. Electric fields buzzed around his glass prison. Dr. Marin approached, flanked by 2 armed guards. "Your people are here. What do they want?" "Rescue," Oren replied, his voice low. "But they will not wait. We should have destroyed you the moment you fell from the sky." Oren's eyes burned. "And yet one of you showed mercy." He looked at Ilara, standing in the corner, arms crossed, conflicted. She didn't speak. Without warning, a beam of light surged from one of the alien ships, but not at humans. It struck the ice shelf, carving a perfect trench in the snow, a warning shot, a message: return our kin or suffer. But humanity didn't understand it. A missile launched, then another, then 20 more. Explosions lit the sky like falling suns. Alien shields flickered. One ship was hit. It spun, spiraled, and crashed into the frozen sea, throwing up a plume of mist and fire. The war had begun. The alien ships retaliated. They didn't use traditional weapons. Instead, they projected pulses of gravity distortion, crushing tanks and tearing structures apart, as if the Earth itself rebelled. Their soldiers, biomechanical creatures with translucent armor, descended like shadows, silent, swift, relentless, human. Troops opened fire, drones exploded, snow turned red. Air battles lit up the clouds, land battles shattered the ice. Even the auroras above seemed to burn with unnatural color. Oren wanted them to be calm and not to fight. He was constantly trying to communicate his people. After so many hours, the battle was over. The sky had gone quiet. Fires smoldered in the snow, where alien ships had clashed with human defenses. The ground was torn, cracked with melted ice and broken metal. Scientists huddled in bunkers, military officers gathered in grim silence. And Ilara was dragged away in chains. Her parka was torn, her hair stuck to her face, her lips were blue from the cold, but her eyes were filled with something worse than fear. Betrayal. "You don't understand," she shouted as soldiers shoved her into the armored transport. He didn't want this. He was trying to stop them, but no one listened. They closed the doors, locked them tight. "You made contact without clearance. You damaged containment." "You started this," the commander said coldly. "The blood is on your hands, Ilara." They didn't send her home. Instead, they took her deeper into Antarctica, into an underground military research facility, long classified, buried beneath decades of snow. Her cell was small, metal walls, one bench, no window. She wasn't allowed. Her journal, no books, no contact, only silence. She sat alone for days, staring at nothing, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights and the drip of a leaking pipe in the corner. She replayed everything in her mind. Their first meeting, the glow of the dome. His voice, "I know you will come," the brief moment of trust, the betrayal. Was I wrong to believe him? Or was everyone else too scared to believe in anything at all? One night, overwhelmed by grief, she pressed her hand to the wall and whispered into the darkness, "Oron, I hope you're safe." A month later, they brought her before a tribunal, a long metal room, cameras, microphones, cold faces. "Dr. Ilara Voss, you are accused of breaching protocol, compromising global security, and assisting an unknown alien threat." She stood silently. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" She looked up. "Yes," she said, her voice cracked. "You were afraid. So was I. But he wasn't a threat. He saved your lives even after you tried to end his. If protecting hope is a crime, then yes, I'm guilty." Silence. Then one of the officers said flatly, "You're to be held under indefinite observation." Case closed, but outside, the world was changing. Someone leaked the footage, Oren's final act of peace, the warning he gave, the moment he stood between his own forces and Earth. People began asking questions. Protests spread. Hashtags exploded. Free Ilara, he was peaceful, the dome truth, public pressure mounted, and finally, one night, her cell door opened. A quiet agent entered. "They're letting you go." She stepped into the cold hallway, blinking at the light. When she arrived back at the surface, someone handed her a bag. Inside it, her journal. She opened it with trembling fingers. A folded note had been added on the last page. "We were wrong. The world knows it now." She smiled softly. Back in the real world, Ilara didn't speak to the press immediately. Instead, she gave a single address. A quiet live broadcast streamed online from a small observatory. The war began because we feared what we didn't understand, as we did not understand him 200 years ago. But one being, alone, trapped, silenced, chose mercy over violence. Again and again, they called him a monster. I called him a friend. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of everything. Inside her tent, surrounded by silence, she opened her journal, the same one she'd carried from the day she arrived. She flipped to a fresh page and began writing. Day 121, after departure. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't what the history books warned us about. He was tired, trapped, misunderstood. Oren showed me a galaxy in his memories. He showed me stars that breathe, oceans in the sky, and cities built on rings of light. But the most important thing he showed me was mercy. We feared him because we didn't understand him. We attacked because it was easier than listening. But in the end, he chose peace. I will never forget the look in his eyes the last time he saw Earth. There was no hate, only hope. One night, Ilara was sitting at her desk when a soft, beeping sound came from her satellite receiver, the same frequency Oron once used. She leaned in. A message appeared in glowing alien script. It translated automatically. "You are remembered. You are welcome. The stars wait." Ilara smiled, eyes wet, heart full. "I'll be there someday." She closed the receiver and looked out the window at the night sky, where stars shimmered like promises.
If you like the story, you can subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so the next story will knock your door on the spot.